Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. Long time no see. Yes, I am back. I am back from the little break that I took from YouTube. I didn't actually intend on this break being so long. I actually intended for the break to only be the first 2 weeks of 2022, and then I would hit the ground running again after having a bit of a break from the hubbub of the final days of 2021. But unfortunately, I ran into some technical issues with my laptop, which I need for editing. I've had these issues for the last few months anyways, but I was putting it off because there were so many juicy videos that I had to, bring out there until finally it just gave up. It just gave up. It was like, Jean, enough is enough. I need repairs. And I was like, okay. And I had to take my laptop to get repaired. Unfortunately, I only did that after the 2 weeks were up for my hiatus, so it ended up being much longer. But I am back now, and I did get my laptop today, although actually the repairs aren't done yet and I need to return it for further repairs. But this week is too important to not have my laptop at home because we have a lot of stuff. Okay, we have a lot of stuff that we need to discuss, starting off with today's announcement for the nominees of the 94th Academy Awards. Yes, we finally got a chance to see who the Academy have nominated for, the very best of film in 2021. And the list overall is okay. Like the list overall, like put your hand up if you were surprised by any of these picks. No one? No, neither was I. Neither was I. There were very few surprises here. It was just same old. But still, we are going to be going through my thoughts on the nominees and the main categories that we got this year. But before we get into that juicy stuff, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. I don't usually take that much of a break between uploads, I promise. So yeah, be sure to check out the channel and subscribe for future uploads. And now, without further ado, let's get into my thoughts for the nominations list for the 2022 Oscars. Okay, so the first category up is Best Actress, and here the nominees are Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Olivia Colman for The Lost Daughter, Penelope Cruz for Parallel Mothers, Nicole Kidman for Being the Ricardos, and Kristen Stewart for Spencer. Now, like I said, there are very few surprises here. I have seen 4 out of the 5 performances listed in this category. The only one that I haven't seen is Parallel Mothers, and they're all really great performances. Like, I'm not saying that these performances are bad or unworthy. There is one omission here that's very interesting, which we'll get to in a second. But just to talk about who is here, I think Kristen Stewart has been the front runner for this category for a while now. She was seen as the season favourite. It was written in the stars the moment that the film Spencer hit the festival circuit. So I'm not surprised that she's here, even though she has gotten some snubs from other awards. But she definitely landed the Academy Award nomination, which is great for her. Although perhaps the steam on her campaign may have run out because she doesn't seem to be as much of a front runner anymore. I personally, controversially, if you have seen my Diana versus Spencer video, you'll know that I'm not actually the biggest fan of Kristen Stewart's performance in Spencer. Not because she gives a bad performance. I just think that she's not Princess Diana in that film. I just don't see her as embodying Princess Diana. It's a very dramatic, very esoteric take on the character, and it more focuses on her emotions and feelings and the trauma that she's going through at that time, the difficulties in her marriage, just kind of bringing her to this breaking point. And that's what Kristen Stewart's performance echoes or shows in that film. But for me, it was just too abstract. It was just too out there. I wanted there to be a little bit more of a balance between having this portrayal, this authentic portrayal of the Diana that we know, and especially because she was, you know, alive in like the 80s and 90s, where there was like video footage of her. She gave interviews. We know what she sounded like. We know how she acted. And Kristen Stewart's performance in the film is just so divorced from that, that for me it was too abstract to kind of fully connect her to Diana. In the case of some of the other nominees, we have Nicole Kidman, who came along. She snuck up, okay, during the awards conversation, because the film, being The Ricardos, landed on Amazon Prime around Christmas time, and so it wasn't really part of the conversation until it did just spontaneously land there. And apparently it has been quite a hit on Amazon Prime. It's not huge, but you know, it's doing well. It's doing decently well, especially considering it's Amazon Prime. And I did get a chance to check out Being the Ricardos. I appreciated the fact that it was released at the same time worldwide. I very much enjoy that, especially because a lot of the films that are in the awards discussion, the awards campaigns, tend to be released much later in the UK. So I did appreciate the fact that I did get a chance to check out Being the Ricardos on Amazon Prime. It is a really good film. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's perfect, but I do think that Nicole Kidman's performance is very strong in that film. However, having said that, I'm not the best kind of reference, or I'm not the greatest you know, authority when it comes to Lucille Ball, because I've never ever watched a single episode of the show that she was on. Oh no, I literally just forgot the name. Hold on. Well, I've never watched an episode of that show. I know the show, I know it. I've literally just forgotten it. So yeah, clearly I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to Lucille Ball. Okay, so don't mind me. I think Nicole Kidman was, you know, really good. Again, I've often said when it comes to her that she is kind of held back by her facial expressions, or lack thereof, due to, you know, years of maybe Botox or work or whatever, that's just inhibited the expressions that she can make on her face. But other than that, I think she gave a pretty strong performance. And in the case of Olivia Colman, my girl Olivia Colman is working. She is working ever since she got that Oscar. Sis has been working hard. She was a voice in not only Ron's Gone Wrong, but also Mitchell's versus the Machines. And these are two very similar animated films from the same year. Like, my sister has been working hard. She's been working hard to pay those bills, and I love it for her. Clearly, she's had a renaissance in her career since winning the Academy Award, and it has not slowed her down whatsoever, but rather she's getting all of these interesting roles. I even saw her in The Landscapers, that HBO limited series about this, like, you know, odd but unassuming couple who committed murder in their backyard. So yeah, she's been working really hard. And I did get a chance to check out The Lost Daughter, and I think she was really good in that. I mean, when does she ever miss? It's Olivia Colman, duh. I will say though, when it comes to some of these Netflix films, I don't think they just lack the pizzazz. We're going to talk about this more though when it comes to other films like the dog one. What's it called? I can't remember. We'll talk about it later. It's been a long day, by the way. We'll talk about it later. But it's not giving me the pizzazz that I'm used to when it comes to Best Picture or Best Actress or, you know, Best Anything nominees in the Academy Awards. And then lastly, I did just quickly want to touch on Jessica Chastain. She would actually be my pick out of all of these 5 ladies. Like I said, I've only seen 4 out of the 5 performances, but I really enjoyed Jessica Chastain's performance in The Eyes of Tammy Faye, and actually I think that's my favourite film out of the 4 that I have seen in this category. I think it was a really underrated film, but a fascinating story about these televangelists that were really popular in America in around the 70s and 80s times, and all of the corruption and all of the scandal that surrounded them. I just think was absolutely fascinating, the way that Tammy was kind of twisted and turned and pushed and pulled in all different directions to basically accumulate a ton of capital. You know, the money from her faithful and devout viewers that ended up being, wasted on these like projects that her husband was running. Her husband, by the way, being portrayed by the talented Andrew Garfield, who himself has been working very hard this past year. So yeah, I really enjoyed The Eyes of Tammy Faye, and I think it's great to see Jessica Chastain being nominated here. I don't think that her performance was just the makeup, even though the makeup was very impressive. I do think that she did a lot of the heavy lifting in that film, and yeah, it was a really great performance overall. So that would be my personal pick, but I think most likely to win would either be Kristen Stewart, because she did have that buzz at the beginning there, but if her star has faded that much since, having that push early on in the Oscars conversation, then I would say that Nicole Kidman perhaps snuck in there just in time to steal the award from under her. So perhaps Nicole Kidman would be the dark horse in this conversation. Now, before we move on to the next category, I of course have to mention the glaring omission, the huge snub that is Lady Gaga not being nominated for Best Actress. The Oscars chose violence. The Oscars chose violence that day. I can't believe it. I can't believe they didn't nominate her. Like, have they not been paying attention? Yes, House of Gucci is not the best film in the world, but it's fun. Okay, it's fun and funky fresh. Like, why are we hating? And Lady Gaga absolutely drove that film. She absolutely carried that film on her shoulders, on her capable shoulders. I think it's shocking that she didn't get a nomination. I mean, this is what she was after. Like, this is what she wanted, and the fact that that film was completely shut out from not just this category, but all of the categories pretty much, other than I think costume design. I think that's really shocking. Unfortunately, Lady Gaga's second efforts to try and snag that golden man hasn't quite worked out this time around. But maybe third time's the charm. Hopefully she'll pick another project that will lead her to Oscar Gold. But this time around, she didn't even get to go to the ceremony. That's painful. Okay, so next up, of course, we have Best Actor. And here the nominees are Javier Bardem in Being the Ricardos, Benedict Cumberbatch in The Power of the Dog. That's what the film is called. Andrew Garfield in Tick, Tick, Boom, Will Smith in King Richard, and Denzel Washington in The Tragedy of Macbeth. So in this case, I have seen all 5 of these films. Great films. Very happy to see them being recognised for the performances inside. But in terms of who I think should take the award home here, I will say what I've been saying for months now. There's nothing new. Nothing has changed. It's Will Smith. Give it to Will Smith now. That's why you would tune into this show. Because the thing is, as I was saying before, a lot of these films are like good, like they're very good, okay? Very good, but they're not like Moonlight. They're not like, nothing is making me, lose my mind here. A lot of these films are just very good. And I feel like the Academy needs a hook. I mean, their ratings have been plummeting for years now, but this past year, especially with the 2021 ceremony, was just abysmal. So they need a reason for people to tune in, and I think Will Smith winning the Academy Award for Best Actor is absolutely a reason, a great reason for people to tune in. So make that happen, Academy, okay? But also, he gave a great performance, and like I said, I've seen all of them here. I've seen Javier Bardem in Being the Ricardos. By all accounts, great performance by him. By most accounts, I have seen that people who were fans of I Love Lucy, I think that is the show, they have said that Javier Bardem perhaps wasn't the best choice for casting, that he didn't quite have the same look and perhaps wasn't young enough. There are certain characteristics that he didn't quite meet to portray the character, so that I have seen that criticism around, but I would say, Javier Bardem is Javier Bardem. Like, he doesn't miss. He doesn't miss, okay? So I'm not surprised to see him here, even though I do think that Nicole Kidman gave the stronger performance of the two. And then in the case of Benedict Cumberbatch in The Power of the Dog, like, okay, so everyone's on this The Power of the Dog high. Again, we'll talk about it in a second. So I guess it makes sense that he's nominated here. You know, fine. But, you know, it's Will Smith. It's Will Smith. I'm very happy to see Andrew Garfield be nominated for Tick, Tick, Boom. I'm surprised to see him be nominated for, but great, you know, well done. I'm really happy for him. I believe he won the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy. So yeah, really happy to see that translate to an Academy Award nomination. And then we have Denzel Washington. Again, another one who just doesn't miss. Like, when does Denzel miss? He doesn't. He doesn't know how to, okay? And I did get a chance to see The Tragedy of Macbeth. Beautiful film. Beautiful film. I'm going to go ahead and check now. It'll just be a second for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and check if it was nominated for Best Cinematography. Hold on. Okay, I just saw the nominees list for Best Cinematography, and The Tragedy of Macbeth is there. And the cinematographer here is Bruno Del Bornel. I think he did a spectacular job. The Tragedy of Macbeth is stunning. It's in black and white. It uses lighting superbly, and also the actual set designs are so important and they're used so effectively. I think that The Tragedy of Macbeth is one of the best looking films that we got the entire year, easily, which is why it's on this list, clearly. But yeah, very well earned when it comes to its nomination for Best Cinematography, and of course for Best Actor for Denzel. Absolutely, like, he was incredible as this Macbeth, this like race-bent Macbeth, but truly he just fit into the story so well. And also props to the film itself for actually having this kind of blind casting when it comes to the races of the character. Macbeth, of course, being a Shakespearean play, has had so many iterations over the centuries. I think it makes sense to have this kind of colorblind casting for this version of the story, and that kind of fits into the, you know, 2020 sensibilities in film and television. But at the same time, it's just very seamless. It's not some like preachy thing that's kind of shouting from the rooftops. It just makes sense in the context of that world, and I think the actors there were just brilliantly cast all around. Okay, so the next category that we have up is Best Supporting Actress, and here the nominees are Jessie Buckley for The Lost Daughter, Ariana DeBose for West Side Story, Judi Dench for Belfast, Kirsten Dunst for The Power of the Dog, and Ingenue Ellis for King Richard. Now, in my dream scenario, who do I want to win? I would say either Ingenue Ellis for King Richard. I think she was phenomenal in that film. Or Ariana DeBose. I am leaning more towards Ariana DeBose just because of, first of all, having that symmetry, that kind of, you know, romantic ending of her having won the Academy Award for the same role as Rita Moreno when she won the Academy Award, you know, in the 1950s. I just feel like it makes sense. It's a nice Hollywood story, and it's very well earned, which is my second point. She is incredible in that film. She is incredible in West Side Story. Are you kidding me? What? The I Want to Be in America sequence, she delivered. She knew the stakes. That's the thing. She knew the stakes were high, and she absolutely delivered. And yeah, I think she should absolutely be rewarded for that effort, because she was truly incredible in that film. When it comes to these other performances, the only film that I haven't seen from this list is Belfast, which is the one that I probably should have seen because it's been a front runner for many awards for a while now. But Judi Dench being nominated, I'm guessing, is because she's Judi Dench. I'm guessing maybe she's superb, okay? Maybe she's superb. Of course, she's Judi Dench, so it's well earned. But yeah, I'm guessing that's why she's there. She's kind of like, yeah, it's Judi Dench, she's acting, let's give her a nomination. And in the case of Jessie Buckley, she's also another actress who's been working hard, okay? And in the case of her performance in The Lost Daughter, I do think she was really great in that as well. She portrays the younger version of Olivia Colman's character, and I think she's tackling with some like really interesting and controversial emotions in that role, because she's not the typical kind of sympathetic mother character. In fact, she's struggling with her role as a mother, as well as her personhood as well as her womanhood, and the fact that she feels like that's kind of been stripped away from her because of her responsibility of being a mother. So I feel like it is slightly more controversial, especially in its portrayal of motherhood. And it's actually Jessie Buckley's scenes where she's portraying this younger version of the character that she has to deal with those more controversial moments that make her seem more unsympathetic and even unlikable as a mother character. And then you have Kirsten Dunst in The Power of the Dog. I think she was really good. She was really good at portraying an incredibly distressed, anxious, paranoid woman who just despises being in that house, like living with her brother-in-law, who just makes her so uncomfortable. He makes her feel like she's constantly being watched. She can never, you know, let her hair down, and to the point where she's driven to alcoholism just to get through the day. It is a very dramatic role, a very drastic change in her personality that we see, and I think Kirsten Dunst does a great job of delivering on those very tragic and really depressing moments that the character goes through. I would still stick to my guns with either Ariana DeBose or Ingenue Ellis being the best contenders here. I would say out of the two, the most likely to get the award would be Ariana DeBose because of that lovely Hollywood symmetry, that lovely story that Hollywood would love to tell. Okay, so next up we have Best Supporting Actor, and here the nominees are Ciarán Hinds for Belfast, Troy Kotsur for Coda, Jesse Plemons for The Power of the Dog, J.K. Simmons for Being the Ricardos, and Cody Smith-McPhee for The Power of the Dog. So yeah, The Power of the Dog is quite strong, quite strong this year. I'm so surprised to see this film get so many nominations. In the case of my favorite performance out of the ones that I have seen, I would absolutely give it to Troy Kotsur for Coda. Absolutely, 100%, without question. Are you kidding me? Coda is a phenomenal film. Coda is spectacular. I spoke about it very recently, spoiler alert, in my best movies of 2021 video. You can go ahead and check that out to hear more about my thoughts on the best movies that we got last year. But Coda is absolutely on there, and I'm so delighted to see Troy Kotsur get a nomination for his role in that film. And for those of you who don't know, the movie is about a family of deaf people, and there is this daughter who is able to hear, and she basically acts as their translator or their, you know, interpreter for sign language for the majority of her life, until she reaches a new chapter in her life and she wants to explore what else is out there in the world, and that causes a bit of tension in the family. But overall, it's a very touching, beautiful story about family and about, you know, the deaf community, or at least as it's represented in this family, featuring actual, you know, deaf actors, which is phenomenal. And yeah, I really enjoyed that film, and I think it's great to see one of the cast be nominated for the Academy Award here. I think it's absolutely deserving. In the case of The Power of the Dog boys, if any of them are going to pick up the award, I would say it's Cody Smith-McPhee who has the best chance, even though Jesse Plemons is great in the film. But I don't think he's as strong as Cody, who has more to do. Like, he has a juicier role here. It's far more complex. There's a lot going on with his character, a lot of deception that's kind of lying beneath the surface there, and he plays off of Benedict Cumberbatch's character really well. So I think he has the strongest chance out of all of The Power of the Dog boys. There's only two of them. I don't know why I'm acting like, but it just got so many nominations. We'll talk about it in a second, okay? But yeah, I would say that he's the most likely to take home the award, but I would personally give it to Troy Kotsur out of the whole list. So the next category up we have is Best Director, and here the nominees are Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza, Kenneth Branagh for Belfast, Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog, and Ryosuke Hamaguchi for Drive My Car, and Steven Spielberg for West Side Story. I haven't seen Licorice Pizza. Is it licorice? I didn't actually look up how to pronounce that word. I think it's Licorice. That makes sense, right? I haven't seen it yet, so sorry, Paul Thomas Anderson. I will say though, considering the fact that this year was full of projects by well-regarded directors like Adam McKay, like Steven Spielberg, apparently, and you know, Ridley Scott as well had a couple of goers there to try and get recognized by the Academy. I do think it's quite impressive that Paul Thomas Anderson was the one to actually end up on the board. I mean, we don't even see Denis Villeneuve here. We don't see Aaron Sorkin for being the Ricardos, even though he got a couple of nods for the performances in the film. So yeah, I think it is impressive that Paul Thomas Anderson kind of came out on top when it comes to the Academy Awards. But then we also have Kenneth Branagh, who has been in talks to be in the running for a while. He has had that buzz for Belfast, and Belfast only came out in the UK last month, and then it promptly disappeared as has been happening in cinemas lately. So I'll have to wait until it goes on streaming to actually check it out, unfortunately. But then we have what I feel is the front runner, and that is Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog. I do think that if The Power of the Dog is going to take home any award, it's going to be for Best Director. I think it's crazy that this film has gotten so many nominations to begin with. Again, we'll talk about it, but overall I would say that Jane Campion is looking like the front runner in the directing category, just because of how much praise this film has gotten all around. And I don't think it's necessarily the strongest in all of the individual categories that we discussed before, but I think overall it has a very strong chance for, you know, Best Director and even potentially Best Picture. We'll talk about it. And the next category up is actually Best Picture, and here the nominees are Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story. So there are a few films in here that I've never even heard of. And I'm sure they're the same films that you've never heard of either. I'm talking about Drive My Car, okay? That's pretty much the only one that I've never heard of. Nightmare Alley was very under the radar. Again, considering the fact that it's also directed by a very highly regarded director in Guillermo del Toro. So the fact that I didn't get much love elsewhere, I didn't really get much attention overall, is pretty surprising, especially considering that it's pretty good by all accounts. And then we have Licorice Pizza, as I said, kind of snuck in there. It did have a bit of buzz throughout the late, 2021 period, but I am surprised to see that it actually landed a Best Picture nomination. Aside from a couple of surprises or a couple of choices that kind of made me raise my eyebrow just a little bit, overall it's looking pretty predictable, honestly. Like, I'm not surprised by most of this. I will say though, The Power of the Dog, let's discuss. Finally, I've been hinting throughout this video, but let's discuss it. How is The Power of the Dog here? What is going on with The Power of the Dog? Okay, is there a conspiracy? Like, did I miss something? Did I watch the wrong film? The Power of the Dog is like surprisingly popular. Like, it really did blow up. It blew up on Netflix itself, by Netflix's account. According to their stats, it's done very, very well on the platform. And it also blew up during awards season. My question is, why? My question is, because to me, it's really not that spectacular. Like, it's a really good film, but it's like a really good film. The best of the year? I think not. I think that this is a case of Netflix just having a ton of money to push behind this film to really get it to the finish line, because we see here it's got a ton of nominations for the Academy Awards. So they've done a great job with the campaign, but I don't think that this film is spectacular. I really don't think that it's worthy of getting all of these nominations, but that's just my opinion. Maybe you guys disagree and you really, really love The Power of the Dog. In the case of West Side Story, I think, this kind of film would have been a front runner back in the day, like it was in 1953. But a lot of things have changed since then. Okay, the landscape has changed, and the kinds of films that are awards favorites have clearly changed, and now we're seeing The Power of the Dog take the lead in terms of nominations, and something like West Side Story just isn't cutting it anymore. It's a different kind of environment when it comes to awards season. So even though it's great that it got the nomination, it certainly helps that it was directed by this new up and coming director director, Steven Spielberg, but I don't think that it is a front runner in this category, at least not right now. Maybe that will change in like the month ahead when the ceremony actually hits. But in terms of my personal choice, I would pick King Richard because it's my favorite film out of this entire list, easily. Okay, so next up we have Best Animated Feature Film, and here the nominees are Encanto, Flea, Luca, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and Raya and the Last Dragon. So this is a very Disney heavy category. Obviously, you know, Disney tends to dominate when it comes to animation. I will say that this past year has seen some great offerings from Disney/Disney adjacent Pixar, so I'm not surprised to see these 3 films be listed here. I think they're all really great, strong animated films. I'm very happy to see Luca be nominated, by the way. Luca was such an underdog. Disney has been doing Pixar dirty, and I won't stand for it, because here Pixar is doing all of this hard work with not even a day and date release where you can actually see the film in the cinema if you want to, or if you want to see it in Disney Plus, you can. Like, not even that option. It's just straight to Disney Plus. I think that's insulting. I think that's insulting. And I am of course referring to the fact that Turning Red, the next Pixar film, is also going to land straight to Disney Plus next month, I believe, which is a shame because, again, I really like seeing these Pixar films on the big screen. I think they're beautifully animated and they deserve to be seen in that way. But, you know, Disney's got a bottom line. Like, Disney's looking at its profit margins, and it's considering the fact that, you know, Book of Boba Fett is about to end and it's going to be a while until we get to Moon Knight, so there has to be something in between, and Turning Red was just right there. So unfortunately, it's straight to Disney Plus once again for another Pixar film, but I am very happy to see the Academy at least recognize the brilliance that is Luca. In terms of Mitchells vs. the Machines, one of the very few non-Disney films in this category, I really enjoyed the first half of Mitchells vs. the Machines. Something just changed in the second half where I kind of lost a little bit of interest. It stopped being quite as innovative and interesting as I thought it would be. So yeah, that's my only thing. That's my only gripe when it comes to Mitchells vs. the Machines. It's a very interesting concept though, but a very similar film that I enjoyed even more, that Olivia Colman also had a voice in, was Ron's Gone Wrong. I actually preferred Ron's Gone Wrong over Mitchells vs. the Machines, even though it is very much an underdog. Like, no one really talks about that film, but it's a story about friendship, whereas Mitchells vs. the Machine is a story about like family. Ron's Gone Wrong has elements of family as well, but yeah, they do tackle very similar topics when it comes to technology versus humanity. So I think it's interesting to see that those films came out in the same year. Maybe I could even do a versus for those 2 films, but yeah, I did prefer the latter to the former, and I wish it had been nominated instead. But I do understand that Mitchells vs. the Machines was a very popular animated release last year. But in terms of my pick for who should win in this category, it's Encanto. It's Encanto. And you know who's gonna win? Encanto. So next we have Best Original Song. Now this is a category that I don't even usually cover. Usually I would cover Best Foreign Language Film, but unfortunately I haven't seen any of the films in that category, so I wouldn't even be able to say anything about any of those films. So instead I'm going to be covering Best Original Song. Not because I've heard all of these songs or because I care about all of these songs, but because I want to rant for a little bit about one particular choice here, okay? A choice that was made. So here the nominees are Be Alive, Dos Oruguitas, Down to Joy, and No Time to Die. So first of all, I do think that No Time to Die should win. It does have a disadvantage because the song was played for so long. Because it was, you know, played gearing up for the release of James Bond in 2020, but of course it was pushed and pushed until 2021, so it feels kind of old and stale up until this point. But I still think that No Time to Die, sung by Billie Eilish and written by Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell, is a phenomenal song. So I do think it does deserve to be nominated, and I personally think that it should win in this category. But it shouldn't have been this way. It shouldn't have been this way, and I'll tell you why. Because Disney had the option to nominate, instead of Dos Oruguitas, to nominate We Don't Talk About Bruno. Who dropped the ball? Who failed? Who failed a very simple assignment? We Don't Talk About Bruno was right there. We Don't Talk About Bruno was right there. Listen, I'm not even on the We Don't Talk About Bruno camp. I like that song quite a bit, okay? But it was only my second favourite song. My favourite song is actually Surface Pressure. So if I had seen Surface Pressure on this list, I would have been delighted. But I still would have been raising questions because We Don't Talk About Bruno has blown up. We Don't Talk About Bruno is honestly, possibly the only reason why Encanto as a film has blown up so spectacularly on social media specifically. Because even though it is a great film all around, people weren't paying attention to Encanto when it was in cinemas. It was only when Encanto landed on Disney Plus on Christmas Eve that all of a sudden it blew up and people discovered the songs in that film, as well as, of course, the great film that it is. And We Don't Talk About Bruno has taken over social media in these past few weeks. So the fact that Disney dropped the ball, fumbled the bag and failed to have this film nominated for the Oscar, instead putting Dos Oruguitas as their nomination, I think is crazy. I think is wild. Now, do I think that Dos Oruguitas is a beautiful song? Absolutely. Absolutely, it's a stunning song, please. And it's also very meaningful when it comes to the themes of the film. Like, absolutely, I 100% agree. But we need to play the game. We need to play, like, do you want the Oscar or not? We need to play the game. This is all a game, remember? And why would you not nominate We Don't Talk About Bruno? Also, just to have it play during the ceremony. Like, people would tune in to watch the Oscar. 2 people, at least, would tune in to watch the Oscars if We Don't Talk About Bruno was being performed. But now who's going to tune in? Who's going to tune in? No Time to Die has been played to death up to this point because, like I said, the film was delayed. So now the song feels stale. It doesn't feel new anymore. These other songs, like, no one has really heard of. Okay, so in the case of Be Alive, maybe Beyonce will perform. If Beyonce's performing in the Oscars, okay, fine. I kind of take some of that back because people will definitely tune in for that. But otherwise, these other options are just pitiful. Okay, if we had We Don't Talk About Bruno on stage, are you kidding? At least 3 people would tune in there. But now you have no one. But that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on the nominations list for the 2022 Oscars, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this list down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.